Just in case you didn't get it, breathe self-awareness. Yeah, that's what I meant. Okay, so you did homework yesterday. And you can do this once in a while to see your progress. Once every month, every few months. Take what you think is your worst fear, your worst shame, and most intense pride. You write it, integrate, destroy. And you look at how you've evolved. After a month, after 2 months, you look at it, experience it. So today, some of you are maybe less in joy because you didn't pay attention to what you are, and you found stuff that you cannot believe could be happy. It'll come. But all of you are more relieved. Less resistance, which is very good. Because we are going to experiment the cool stuff today. We've heard about telepathy, telekinesis, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, feeling, this and that. We heard about it. And sometimes you can get books of this and that will tell you how to develop each. But I've never read a single book that explained how they work, because they all work exactly the same way. There's one fundamental technology, which is the forces of nature. And it is very simple. But just so that we remember, our mind has to be clear. If you are afraid to misuse one of the supernatural abilities, it means that you need to integrate more and recognize yourself as a good person. The solution is not to prevent yourself from becoming aware or powerful. The solution is to get yourself to know you are such a wonderful being, and you will do everything in your power to produce happiness, regardless of how you do it. And according to the laws of right speech, you will not tell to someone something you see, just because you saw it. You don't have to reveal stuff. Only if you are certain it will produce happiness. Because if you would not have been sensible, sensitive, aware, no one would have known, and no one would have told a certain person this or that. But if you know it can produce happiness, do it. If you think, this person might love to know that her husband is cheating, you think it's going to produce happiness. Well, starting from a point, it's none of your business, shut up. And if you know that a couple relationship is over, and you have information, and these people come to you to ask, how do you think we could become happy? And they're kind of giving permission by inquiring your point of view. Then you give the information according to how you think will be the best. And if the best information is, well, you know, when you think your relationship is over, you have to face the facts and accept that your fear is to be alone. You know? And that would be enough. You understand? I'm taking this very sensible matter because it's a very raw example. So when you get to the light stuff, it'll be easy to manage. Okay? So you think I tell you everything I see about you? Well, there's two things you need to know right now. I don't see lots of things because, frankly, I don't care. And when I want to look, I focus. It doesn't take effort because the surface will reveal itself. And if I want to dig, then I have to go in. Otherwise, You might not believe that, but I have great respect for your privacy. And why would I bother myself with knowing stuff that I will not use exactly at the moment I will use it? So there's a switch, on, off. In fact, it's always on. When you're aware, it's always on. But you can tune to the frequency. So I become aware of what you are at the highest level I can think of. So I never get the information about your human. All I see is enlightened, wonderful people walking as gods. You don't know that, but I'm telling you, this is what I perceive. You might actually want to try it, perceiving it in yourself. Produces a good feeling. All right? So when someone wants to know what goes on in my human, what could you tell me about my next step? What can I learn? Or what's my problem? If it's a question based on self-esteem or lack of it. Well, then I take the time because you asked. Otherwise, I'm just so happy. And this perception I have of you being also very happy will radiate that in you. So why should I care what someone thinks of me if I'm happy? And if all I see in people are very, very happy soul experiences, glad to go through their trials, regardless of the opinion of the human regarding the trial. So it's a state of mind. Okay? So you're going to develop this progressively in time, not through hard work, through work. Don't qualify it. And give yourself time. Alright? I was just waiting for you before starting the blessings.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why you feel guilt? I told you I was waiting.
Thank you.
Because I love you.
Oh, thank you.
Now you missed the entire introduction speech. Too late. Just to push on the guilt a bit. Breathe. I was just explaining them that they should have a very good vision of themselves. Like you should know you're a good person. Technology of ESP. How it works. From here to here, you will write on the right. The 6 senses. So, 6 senses. We don't have 5, we have 6.
6 senses, just write the word 6 senses.
6 senses.
Like this.
6 senses. We have 6 senses. The first sense is mind. It is the most refined and sensitive sense. So sensitive that you don't even feel it when you're not aware. Then there is sight. The second most developed sense in humans, normally. Then there is hearing. Followed by touch. Then smell. Then taste. Okay. These are the senses, the tools by which we perceive. The higher it is on this list for most humans, most, not all, the more it is affected by your mental state. So if your mind goes crazy, forget about feeling anything with mind. And then your perception will be extremely altered. You think that you see good, but there's tons of information you don't even see. Even though the light enters your eyes, produces the image, it's so filtered. The interpretation of what you see with your eyes is so filtered by your disturbed mind. When it goes crazy and it cannot stop thinking, like when you go to bed and it won't stop, okay? So the same. The hearing is a bit less disturbed by your mental state. The touch, almost not affected. Smell and taste just come in just as they are. Okay, almost. I have nothing more to write for now. So I will take this and like this. I'm going to use another color. Thank you. So, in nature, there is energy of various frequencies. Okay? Energies of various frequencies. Everything in nature is drinking in a pool of goo that is so subtle and refined that it cannot even be felt by the senses. Usually not even perceived by mind. Okay? And this goo, we call it sometimes the matrix, not because of the movie, like 1,000 years ago, this was the word used in Sanskrit. We call it sometimes shakti when we address the fact that it is conscious. In science, we say the unified quantum field. It is an uninterrupted substance. It is not granular like atoms. It is continuous. It is not interrupted. Okay? They're not particles. It's a completely continuous field of goo that works like a liquid. In this liquid, there are waves. The waves are of different frequencies. So when I address a scientific crowd, I say this is the unified field. Those who learned the first siddhi, they start to have experience. Those who practice the first siddhi, they start to have experience becoming aware of this very extremely immense, subtle existence of the universe. And nature is within this goo. Okay? Physical nature is densified goo. Densified shakti. Right? From now on, I'm going to call it the shakti, not the divinity with so many arms and legs and this and that, but the substance that we wish to refer. And this substance is intelligent because it is divine. It is conscious. And it is in the matrix of Shakti that everything is made. To understand the concept of Divine Mother, we say that this is the mother's womb. So this is the universal womb. And the goo I was referring to, calling it Shakti, is this energy that is somewhat like the liquid in a womb, a placenta. Starts to make sense? right? So everything is dripping in that. That's not ESP. That's just natural forces. In this substance, this undefined consciousness will just accept whatever is imprinted on it. So emotions at the emotional level imprints, taints these frequencies. They taint it, and the frequency, different levels of frequency becomes carrier of the information. So if there is a strong emotion next to a rock, this rock will carry the images, the consciousness, the awareness, the intelligible traces of the event that is related to this emotion. So for a very strong emotion, you can get into this field that, oh, there's a rock there that seems to be carrying consciousness. You can take it and tap into it, and you'll feel, oh, a few hundred years ago, this event happened next to this rock. The misunderstanding of the mechanics of it, you'd say, oh, the rock is conscious. It's telling me something. Because you treat it like if it was an individual. The rock doesn't care. There is consciousness, but there is no individuality, like in a personality, like you and me and I evolving and doing our stuff. Okay? So the rock has consciousness. It doesn't have a consciousness. It's not self-aware, but it is made of awareness because the universe is aware. It's us that are not. Sometimes. Most of the time. Right? So if you go to a tree or a plant is barely starting to understand the concept of individuality. But since it doesn't have a nervous system, it doesn't perceive the outside to be separate from the inside, so it's still in oneness. Okay? This is why when you eat vegetables, you have more chances of going to the experience of oneness. Whereas a cow has a very refined nervous system. It believes the outside to be separate from the inside. It needs to behave like in a group. It has social behavior. So it feels the emotion of abandonment. Thus, when you eat meat, you get this inside you. You're just going to entertain your experience of knowing you're separate from everyone else. Okay? So this is why we like to eat more refined food. So what is the best food? The more refined the nervous system, the better. But I eat meat sometimes when I want to densify. When I want to go back to the very dense, when I want to feel my body. Okay? A lot. And the emotion trace that was in the cow, I integrate it. I observe it. It is released in consciousness. Okay? So people who don't look at themselves continuously and are on a spiritual path, they say you have to be vegetarian because the poor cow will die. It's an emotion, integrated. Those who don't look at themselves, you know a few spiritualists that do not do personal growth, they only do spiritual technique and want to attain enlightenment by force. You know that? Most people, in fact, on spiritual path. Well, they should be vegetarian. To use the outside influence, they so much believe that the outside has power on them, they use little rocks and this and that, and they don't like to go to a shopping mall because it's dense. Okay? This is because while we believe the outside has influence on the inside, might as well use the best possible influences outside. But I don't need incense to bless my altar. I use it because it's fun. And it does have a little influence. But what blesses my altar and the room is my consciousness while I am moving the theatrical work of it. Okay? Because my consciousness is what puts an imprint in the goo here. Right? So, the shakti, the substance, the universal substance, is completely non-judgmental, allows to get itself imprinted by anything, but as it mixes along, it will just re-dissolve in everything. So the basic common events don't really put any imprint on things. Unless you're very sensible and you take a rock that has never been tainted by any strong emotion, and you're just going to ask its life, but not like if you were addressing an individuality. You're going to be in the questioning state of mind, story of your life, and be conscious that you'll just be inquiring the conscious traces on there, and you'll have a very fast forward flash of 3,000 years of some people, people going, and that's it, in a few seconds. It will just reflect you what happened. And you're probably going to see a few things like rain and this and that. Right? So you can address this, but then you have to drive it to one of your senses. Then information at various levels has to go through your mind, which is exactly the same mind that perceives. Okay? Has to go through your mind, but your mind sometimes is completely crazy. So forget about getting any traces of consciousness through the mind, through what links you to universal consciousness, my individual consciousness. That still believes it is separated from the other. Okay? So this you need to clear up, because you clogged yourself in a shell, so it has to go through the pipe of your mind. Usually the pipe of your mind is not a pipe, it's extremely big, but it's still a clog. Okay? And then it redirects information on itself, so we'll say it goes to the mind. It might go into the perception, hearing, touch. Right? So once information goes through that, the consciousness that was pure here, that just related exactly the events or traces of consciousness as they were, this information, like the object was blue, goes through your mind. Your mind has your preferences. I hate blue, but my favorite color is red. So the information is, the object was violet or red. Tainted by your mind. It is like a membrane, like a filter that will taint everything that comes in. Okay? So this is why, let's say, a case of clairvoyance that I've worked with on a murder case. So this sheriff office hired a psychic. They usually hire two to give information, and 85% of their stories were the same and 15% differed. So then they contact me. I don't play the game, saving people and resolving murder, crime scenes and stuff like that. But this guy wants to know how to become a very psychic himself. He's a sergeant detective, and he wants to resolve the situation. He wants to resolve the case, and he's starting to get these insights himself. So he asked me, what can you tell me? So I said, okay, what I'm going to do is instead I'm going to guide you. And start to explain why there is a difference in between the two psychics. And then I give my own opinion, my own reading, to say this is the facts I perceive. And actually that led them to understanding the murder as a whole. But the goal was to teach this guy how to do it. And I guided him. And they found out how to remove from their mind the interpretation. Okay? Just accept everything as it is. So if you look at yourself in your life, and there are things you don't accept of your own self, how are you going to be so sensitive and untainting to allow other consciousness to go through without being influenced. If you don't like violence, it means you're a normal human. If you love violence, you have a problem. If you despise violence and react to it strongly without compassion, incapable of forgiving, forget about perceiving anything that has to do with violence. Okay? You're going to taint it or deny it, but you're not going to just see it. If you have great desire and love issues, forget about reading anything about love and desire or perceiving these kind of things. So the more you purify yourself, the more you just accept the information that will come as it is. If you accept yourself as a human being totally, knowing it is a wonderful experience to evolve, even if you did not resolve everything, because, I mean, you would be completely ascended. If you accept that regardless of what you did not see yet of you, regardless of what could be clogging you, human life is a wonderful experience, and yeah, there's suffering, but it's part of the game, and I accept it. At least I'm at peace and I accept it. Then you're going to accept the information that comes from the universal substance. The consciousness traces the tainting that is in there. And a conscious trace in time will dissolve. The information will go away. Why? Because there's divine radiance constantly purifying the universe. And we saw that Friday evening for those who were in the Heavens and Hell teaching. Okay? So, a very strong emotion will leave a very long trace, a trace occurring in a very long span, okay? And a subtle emotion will just leave a little subtle trace, and it goes away and away and away. So, but everything is just a bit there still. Some people say it is the Akashic records. What is Akashic records? What does Akasha mean? Akasha means space. Okay? Akasha means the place where everything happens. Okay? Akasha is immensity of space. We also call it heavens or the sky. It just means a very large space where everything happens. So reading in Akasha means reading in the universal consciousness. Okay? Reading in the place where it happened. Okay? It's not mysterious. It's not like some kind of library that you can access. Like open a book and behave like in a public library. No, it's not the same way. It's just traces here and there. But without this teaching, people just don't understand. So, telepathy is my mind and your mind is the same. So I become conscious here of what goes on in your head because we're one. Okay? Easy? Clairvoyance is taking this information and putting it through the visual cortex in the back of the head, or the visual interpreter, which is imagination. Okay? Where you imagine images when you dream. This is the best place to pour your images, so you can keep your eyes seeing here, not clogged by visions and stuff, can keep being functional, and at the same time, through your imagination, truth of what really happened will pop. But this is a sensible matter. How can you make the difference between what really happened and what you imagined and the part of it that you altered through your mind? Yeah. That's a bummer. When you gain experience in integration and you recognize the 21 masks of the ego, especially the emotions and the denials, if you can recognize them, you'll see information that feels ego, and the other one that just feels, yeah, that's right. So you're going to just take care of what you feel that's accurate. So when you perceive, you do ESP, you have to do some integration. I'm trying to have extrasensory perception on a subject. I'll first see if I'm clear regarding this subject. And once you feel clear, it can be very bad stuff and filled with suffering, but you can feel at peace and capable of understanding it. And well, yeah, it's not something we must encourage because there's suffering, but I understand why it happened and the lessons that are involved. It wants to discover forgiveness by force. So it manifests things to forgive that are not cool. Okay, I understand the situation. Okay, that's an example. So then we're clear with that, and we can start perceiving. And I'll teach you how to do the perception, how to interface with the conscious traces, the traces of consciousness here. I wish to remind you that we have a consciousness as an individuality. A mountain has consciousness. It's not a consciousness. There is consciousness in there. But the mountain is not self-aware because the mountain does not think it is separate from the other mountain, because from our perception, very looking just at the surface, there are two mountains, but from within the earth, it's a series of ripple on its surface. Okay? So if you perceive very globally, you'll see that there's just consciousness. It doesn't have a soul, it has soul. But it's not individualized. Okay? It's everywhere. Yes?
So does the glob have consciousness or a consciousness? The glob.
The goo, this big,
Good.
yeah. Yes, it has consciousness.
Not a consciousness.
In this case, we could say both. From the human perception, it has a consciousness, which is God.
Okay.
And it has consciousness, which is supreme consciousness, because God does not exist, according to others. Okay? It is the unique consciousness of all things, from which we isolated ourselves to believe that we had one of our own. Okay? But your question was very useful. Yes. It has a consciousness. In fact, it has the only consciousness that exists. This is the only way to accurately say there is a sentient, intelligent consciousness in all this. Because it is the only one that exists in the universe. And we, from that, imitated God as a single being, and we became single beings, thinking that we ourselves were a single, unique consciousness, which is not the truth. Yeah?
Could there be more than one universe?
Yes, there are more than one universe, but you should take care of this one.
Okay.
But you're right. There's the same way that there's more than one galaxy. There's more than one planet. There's more than one star. There's also more than one universe. Okay, and they're all at the same place, not behaving the same because each are behaving separately, believing that they are single universes. Like if they were individuals, they're just caught up on the same thing. The force of nature that made us to think that we were individuals, each universe, knowing that everything within is part of it, thinks that it is individual. Right? The same way that each of our cells in our body thinks that it's a standalone unit, where we know it's one body. Okay? Because from within we say this is one and this is separate. Okay? Why? Because we project outside. And your cells do the same at every level, down to particles and atomic substance. Everything always believes it is, from its standpoint, unified from within and separate from without. Okay? So, yeah, universes behave the same way. That's not very useful to know right now as how can I evolve as a being, but it's cool. It's close to science fiction. I love it.
So everything like a vehicle is consciousness but not self-aware.
Exactly. One vehicle has substance that is conscious as non-individual, has traces. It's made from the goo, the universal substance. It's made of that. And it gets a self-awareness simulation when a human being, understanding the concept of individual behavior and separate components and theatrical display and as personalities. When you get in your car and let's say you give it a name and you conceive its shape, and the car does not start to believe that. The consciousness that is encompassed in your car will behave according to the trace you gave it.
Okay.
So yes, your car starts to believe, not to believe, it starts to behave as an individuality because you made it so. Since it does not have willpower of its own, and it's made of untainted and fully accepting consciousness, it will just adapt to whatever you imprint in it. And this is also how you make a talisman. You imprint in the talisman that it's a talisman of peace, but for that you need to get to a state of peace yourself and bind it to the object through a ritual that will have physical actions so that it will have a physical effect. And then you have a talisman of peace. That's because you modulated the consciousness to act in this way and radiate that. So my car is named the Haraksha, means the body protector. It's meant to protect my body. I gave it a name. I love my car. I can address it. This is how I talk to my computers. When I have a computer, I first give it an identity. And if you love to play drama, sometimes, okay, let's say you take, that's not on the subject, but it's cool. Let's say you take a teddy bear and you start to give it a name, you know? And babies, we play, okay? And sometimes we think, oh, Teddy is so sad. Teddy starts to have this trace of sadness. If you say, oh, Teddy is so this and that, oh, Teddy is happy now, and you start to push, to project your life drama onto the thing that you would love to have a personality, like in this movie with Wilson, okay? You get that? So if I talk to my computer and I dramatize, it will start to behave like if it was intelligent and self-aware and had a will of its own. Not because it does, but because I made it to behave that way. Because if I put my drama in the computer and say, oh, my computer's not feeling good today, or oh, my computer's okay, and the computer might start reacting like a human does because I projected, you take these behaviors for your own. It will completely accept it because it's not even aware it's taking it. It's just consciousness, substance that you modulated. So your computer will crash so it can play drama with you because you want it.
But it won't if we're not putting it in there. Like
So, exactly.
If I'm just dead and I'm just next to the computer will not adapt that.
Exactly. So my computers never break, and every one of my friends' computer breaks, because when I put consciousness, and I know this computer to be a very good computer, and always in a state of peace and harmony, and the computer is happy to be performant and efficient, and it will warn me if there's something going on that could prevent it from being that way. And then the computer accepts that, and it starts to feed me information, incoming virus, beep, beep, my antivirus pops. Oh, I have burned the segment on the hard drive. It's going to start. But to interface with a computer with such precision, you need to have been working with computers all your life. So I can repair a computer by talking to it, where other people can't. But some people will be very inclined to telekinesis, where I'm just unable. Why? Because I did not do physical effort and manipulate physical charges all my life. I've been working with computers. But you get this guy working in construction and doing martial arts, and when it's time to learn telekinesis, he just gets like this. 2, 3, 4 months of training, and they start to have effects on physical matter. Why? Because they understand in their human experience kinetic forces and movements, and they've tapped into this. Where even though I did do a deal of martial arts, I did so much more intellectual and mental stuff in my life that this is where I'm efficient. I know what a computer experiences as consciousness, not as a soul, not as an individuality, but what goes on in the conscious traces of the substance where there is computer. You know? Okay, does this make sense, all this? Okay. So basically, all ESP is your mind's availability to focus here. There's an experience here. Let's say this experience is happy. And your mind pays attention to either the experience itself or the object that is affected by it. So there is an object that was given as a gift in a birthday. Okay? And there's great joy associated with that. So it pays attention to this. The natural response, it will wave back to the mind. If your paying attention was a trigger saying, tell me, provide information. Okay? If you were in a state of mind of questioning without asking a question, it's not an individual. It's not someone that will answer. But you're in the questioning state of mind. Okay. You starting to get this? Already at back? Okay? Now then, you are the one that selects where it goes. How do you do that? Training. This is the hardest to develop. Just perceive with mind. Because your mind is just self-effective. In fact, this would be just here. You get the information the moment it goes here, and you don't have to tap it through one of the nervous system's interface. Or one part of the cortex. Alright?
Having to do with the mind and the center, that perception, we perceive things through our sensory perceptions is out there. We close our eyes and meditate, we perceive things to be on the inside. There's a assembly line there, or whatever you want to call it. Explain to a degree will, intent.
Intent and will in this. Can we wait till the second chapter?
Yes,
Okay.
anytime.
Because afterwards, this is how you get information out there in here. Then I'm going to tell you how you get information in here out there. And if you impose your will so powerfully, the denser the level of vibration, the harder and the more will it takes, but you can actually transform physical matter. If your information of consciousness here was stronger than the compacted natural force here, so if you have a freaking amount of willpower that you just taint with, this is the reality, and just push it there, boom, matter changed. Okay? But to affect someone's mind is so easy, because it's one level of density. Mind to mind is extremely easy. Mind to emotions 10 times harder. Okay? Mind to chi is 100 times harder. This is why it's very easy to just be angry and people will start to be angry. If you think something, people will behave that way. But for people to feel your presence, it needs to be 100 times stronger than mind. Mind is like 1 unit of mind consciousness, emotion 10 times, vital body 10 times, physical matter 10 times. So you need 1,000 units of mind power to change physical matter, which is a big deal. We need to take a few minutes.